Thank you very much. It's my pleasure now to invite Dr. Alex Lagunu. Currently, he is the Health Ministries Director of Southern Africa Indian Ocean. But he was the recent past Executive Director for Adventist AIDS International Ministry. Please, Doctor.
Morning, everybody. How are you enjoying your Sunday? Fine. Isn't it a wonderful way to be spending Sunday in this August congregation? I hope you're enjoying your Sundays today. Anyway, my task for today, can you please have the slides, is about what we call the Adventist AIDS International Ministry 2002 onwards. So in a way, it is going to be a history class. And I'm so thankful that Dr. Siko had mentioned some of the items so that when I go to the items that she had already discussed, I'm just going to skim over it since we don't have a lot of time, okay? Now, how did HIV/AIDS ministry started? Well, you can blame the man here in front of us. But really, because of the initiative of the General Conference, initially from Dr. Alan Handysides and Dr. Peter Landless, this ministry started in a very humble way, but now it has gone to such wonderful, large proportion. Not only that, but it has really been a ministry of compassion, love, and mercy. And this is really the reason why we have this. So let me just go back and tell you, and part of it is also to tell you what are the things that we at AAIM have to offer to you, okay? Okay, sorry. It actually started with the initiative of the Health Ministries of the General Conference in October 2002. That's what, about 21 years ago, okay? Wherein the leaders of the health ministry sold the idea to the General Conference, and after that they sold it to the divisions because it's very important that there was a buy-in. So finally, during the executive committee, the General Assembly of the Executive Committee of the GC, then they took an action for the creation of this ministry, which is going to involve the 3 divisions of Africa. Of course, this is really a worldwide office, as Dr. Landless has already explained, but concentrated, as you know, here in Africa because of the high incidence of HIV here. Now, you know, the question when this was actually passed, one of the many questions that was asked, and I think many of you are asking, why is it that you have actually an HIV AIM, what we call ministry? We don't have a ministry for diabetes. And if you think that there are about 420 million people worldwide who are suffering from diabetes, then you say, how come the church does not have this ministry? Or if you're going to think about hypertension, and I know some of us here are suffering from hypertension, 1.5 billion people in the world are suffering from hypertension, and yet we as a church do not have a hypertension ministry. These are all actually under health ministry. Or even so much more, if you go to tuberculosis, 1/4 of the population of the world is suffering or latently positive for tuberculosis. That means if we are actually 200 here, which I think we're about 200 here, that means 50 of us are actually having the bacteria in our system. It's just a matter of time it will come out when our immunities goes low. But then you ask the question, TB has the highest number of cases in the world, and yet there is no TB ministry. And yet compared to, maybe I should just stand here. Compared to HIV, we have only 39 million. Diabetes, 420 million. Hypertension, 1.2 billion. Tuberculosis, 2 billion. Yeah, so in terms of numbers, really, HIV is quite low, and yet we have this ministry. And I know because many people, as I was going around doing what we call a ministry, they asked the question, is there really a justification? How come we are not having it together with the rest of health ministries? Or for instance, Or for instance, what difference do we have to offer? As you know, during the height of the pandemic, you go everywhere as though every corner that you go to, every second block had what we call HIV going on a program for them. So now you ask the question, with all the plethora of all the programs that are going around, what difference do we have to offer? And this is it, it's very important. You see, if you think about it, HIV, I don't know if you agree about this, HIV is a reflection of the attack on biblical sexual relationship. God created this very intimate relationship, and yet it is being desecrated by the whole world. And so, we as a church really have to call back into this very sacred relationship. So that is one of the many reasons, one of the what we call primary reasons why we have this what we call ministry. What? Are you violating anything if you have tuberculosis? Are you violating anything if you are God's plan, if you are going to have hypertension? Well, of course you can say, well, our body is a temple of the living God. But really a front, and this is one of the reasons why we have this ministry. Okay? So we have, when this was created, and Dr. Sikwa had already enunciated about this, to respond to the World Church HIV, I will go with biblical principles. And the big difference that we are actually offering in this ministry is that we are Bible-based. And please always remember that, Bible-based. Because if we are just doing testing, if we are just doing prevention, we are just like any of those HIV programs that are going on there. So mark it, biblical principles. Okay? Now, when HIV was still thick on the ground, and I was a church elder, in fact, I was the church elder in Botswana, one day I actually got this note from a member, and this is what it says. What shall we do to a member who is HIV positive? I don't know if you also got this type of a message. But now it actually shows you what was the concept of our members when it comes to HIV. Now, the reason why they ask this is because they have this very self-righteous idea that people who get HIV had really violated the seventh commandment. And as a result, they should be disfellowshipped from the church. Basically, that's that. Okay, another question is it right to use condoms? So these were the things that were swirling around, and I'm so glad that we have finally answered these questions. But really, that is the reason why we had this ministry, and we had to address these very glaring items or issues in the church, okay? Okay. Number 2, to be a grace-filled ministry, and this is it. Dr. Sikwa again had mentioned about it, so that you have HIV awareness, prevention, care, and support. And please, let us remember that it is really grace that is the center of these programs. Grace to transform our lives. Grace to reach out to people. You know, many people have a concept of grace, cheap grace. Anyway, I'm going to be saved by grace. But that is not our idea of what grace is all about. In fact, we should have Titus 2:11, for it is the grace of God that teaches us to live a righteous life. We actually teach about victory. We actually teach about transformation. And if you have problems sexually, go to God, and He is going to give you that grace. And this is what is very important. We have to realize that God has given us the grace to be able to overcome. And of course, as what we have been read, Isaiah 58, to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked. This is it because you see, we need to have a face of compassion. And that is also the essence. To show love, compassion, and mercy to all around us. Okay. Now, this is the history. After the General Conference came up with this promulgation that we are going to create the Adventist AIDS International Ministry, then the one that was appointed was Dr. Oscar Giordano. And the first AIM advisory was in August 2003. And there were only 6 of us. We started with only 6 of us, but now as I see all the faces here, more than 150 people here, and even many more if they were allowed to come, you can really see how God has tremendously blessed this ministry. We had Dr. Giordano, we had his wife, we have Mike Nigeri of ADRA, we have George Sands of WAD, I think he's back to Canada. Well, Fasaha is still around with us, and we are basically the 2 who are the remnants of the initial, what we call first advisory. Okay, that's Dr. Giordano and Mrs. Giordano, I'm sure you know. But for those who do not know them, they were the first who started this ministry. And they even had a manyata, that is actually a Maasai hut. And they even went to the extent of staying in one of those huts to identify with the Maasais. Okay? You're laughing. I think it's okay. I don't have other pictures, but this is the 4th. Anybody who has come from the 4th? Let me see. Do you recognize your face there? Who attended the 4th? Nobody. Okay. Let's see who survived. Oh. Kisito. Samuel, Pastor Samuel, okay. Dr. Okay, we have the 2 of them. Okay, thank you. Okay, that's the 5th. Do you recognize anybody there, or were you there? I'm sure Pastor Kisito again is there, and Dr. What's your name? Okay, who else? Oh, okay, Fasaha, okay. Okay, this one now. 7th, so I'm telling you, Dr. Sikwa, it's the 7th, which was held in Nairobi in July. How many of you were there at the 7th AAIM Health Advisory at Sea? Wow, praise the Lord that you are back. Okay, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. So can you see how the ministry has really tremendously grown? Okay, WAD, these were the delegates from WAD. Let me see those who are still around. WAD. 1, okay, 2, 3, okay, fantastic, fantastic. Safi, I know. Also, Mevac is there. Okay. SID. In fact, at the time, it was Dr. Sikwa who was the Health Ministries Director of the Health Ministries. Let me see the hands of those who were there. Okay, good, good, good. So now you have gained a lot of experience. ECD, those who were there last time, okay, very good. Thank you so much. So that is really the history of AAIM until today. Okay, now what do you think is the success? Why is it that AIM is such a success? And I tell you, the very reason for the success of AIM, of course, is because of you, all your contributions, all your help. But really the reason why we are going forward and getting stronger each time is because the powerhouse of this ministry is the local church. So whatever programs that you are going to have, the final gauge is, has it reached the local church? In fact, our what we call AIM is that we are going to have coordinators, AIM coordinators, up to the level of the local church. So whatever programs that you are going to have at the union level, at the what we call division level, be sure that this program is going to filter up to the local church. Now, this is a busy slide, but this really summarizes all what we are supposed to do in AIM. Okay? And this is what we're going to be discussing now. We have what we call the medical programs. We have the social issues, education, and spiritual. So, as AIM coordinators, just look at this as a guidelines on how you are going to do your programs in your specific area, whether you're at the union, at the conference, or at the local church, and you can see it's a vast array of programs that we can do. Okay. Now, one of the things that were really issued was actually official statement on HIV/AIDS. And as I had told you, some people were even fired out of their work. Some of people were even disfellowshipped in church because they have HIV. Unfortunately, these are actually true stories. They were driven out of the church. So the church came up with an official statement on what is our reaction on HIV, that it should be treated like any other disease. We don't disfellowship people for hypertension or diabetes. And we should not actually disfellowship or ostracize people who are suffering from HIV. Now, the statements are going to be at the, what we call, AAIM website, okay? The entry point, actually, of HIV was testing, because like any of the programs, we said testing is very important for people to find out if they have the disease or not, and then you can do what we call what is essential, okay? And we are so glad that the church had a program, and this is what is the beauty of the programs of the church, because you see we can intermingle, we can utilize the programs of the church to incorporate other programs. And this is it. Many of the churches were using Health Expo as a way of doing HIV testing. And the good thing about it is that when you do HIV testing together with Health Expo, it is going to be not only an isolated testing, but you are also doing other parameters, like for instance, diabetes or cholesterol or whatever, blood pressure, see? And the strategy that we have, again, we said prevention, care, and support, is really, number one, abstinence before marriage. That is really the core of our program. Abstinence before marriage, faithfulness in marriage. And we keep on emphasizing it because that really makes a big difference between the stand of the world and the stand of the church. And then we came up with a brochure, an information brochure, and we still have that brochure. Of course, we need to update it. Prevention strategies, as we know, handling of body fluids, and at the same time, especially prevention from mother to child transmission. As we said, church position on condom, and there was a statement that was issued by the church about how we are going to relate to condoms. Sorry. One of the reasons why we came up with that statement is because many of the churches believe that condoms should never be used in the church. Even if there were what we call discordant couples in the church, they said, no, you are not supposed to use condom. And that's the reason why the statement has been released, and it is still in the web. And we are going to update it according to Dr. Bangwato here. Again, statement on policy and issues on HIV/AIDS. Dr. Landless had referred to that of an author who actually said they had utilized the policy of the church because it actually tells us that we cannot, for instance, fire employees who are HIV positive. We cannot deny any admission for students who are HIV positive. So it was a very good guideline on the disease. And of course, one of the important things that we stress, especially the first few years of HIV, when there was no medication. I tell you, I remember the time when there were still no medications. A lot of people were really suffering, even dying. But it has been proven that by using what we call nutrition and lifestyle, a person is able to live longer. Okay? And of course, we have the program called Celebration because it is really a lifestyle program. And this is still what we're encouraging people to follow, having what we call celebration as a program for lifestyle and diet and nutrition. Well, we thank God later on, antiretroviral drugs came and it proved to be a miracle. I have actually seen so many of people who were already at the point of death, and when they were given ARVs, they bounced back to life. They even call this as the Lazarus effect, because people who were already at the point of death were able to bounce back to life. Okay? A very good example is, I think you've seen this picture of the internet. This gentleman, can you see? And yet after treatment, look how strong he is. And I have seen that in many of the patients that I have attended to. Well, here is the big problem. ARV is free, but nutrition is for a fee. We have to realize that at the same time that we are going to tell people to take ARVs, in order for them to be able to bounce back, they need good nutrition. Because remember, ARVs only kill the virus. Once the virus is killed, then the body has to rebuild itself. So, very important to go hand in hand, ARVs and nutrition. Now, the big problem, though, is people don't have money. As they have said, HIV is a disease of poverty. And that's true. Well, Dr. Sikwa had also mentioned about this. We have in our midst people who refuse and even try to convince members not to take ARVs. And this is a very big issue which we need to address. And I pray that all of us here will really take a stand against these people who are telling that you should not take ARVs. Because, for instance, a person has ARV and then they respond, but then they are told that, can you see, you are well now, you don't need the ARVs. They stop, and as a result, they actually go back, the viral load goes up. Not only that, but they develop resistance, and as a result, when they go back to ARVs, they cannot use the basic ARVs. And the second and the third line of ARVs are really more expensive compared to the first lines of ARVs. And this is the manual that we have for training in church. We train pastors, we also train members about HIV, to tell them about the basic, what we call pathophysiology, infection, method of infection. And at the same time, it also gives them an idea on how to take care of people suffering from HIV. The manual was later on revised. That's the revised manual. But this is another material that we have developed especially for pastors, because we realize that unless we are going to engage the pastors, then our efforts are not going to be so effective, because the pastors are going to prevent us from telling the members. So as coordinators, it is very important that you engage with the church pastors, not only that, but also with the officers of the union and the conference to have success in your programs. Okay, there's training that we had, just to show you. Now, this is actually the brochure that we developed, which Dr. Giordano developed, on how to be able to organize the church to have support systems, or what we call people living with HIV support group. And then this is another brochure of awareness, so people will know what HIV or AAIM is all about. This was released somewhere in 2010 during the General Conference. And we updated this. Adventist AIDS, it tells us about the ministry, and at the same time, it even puts there at the back the bank account of AAIM for people if they want to donate. Now, you could say, it's not effective. I tell you, it is effective. I even one time got a note from a person at the UK. She gave 10,000 pounds because she just saw this brochure put into her account. So, please, you can make a modification, and of course you need funds, but really, what is important is that we create awareness for people to be able also to give and to be part of this ministry. Okay, that's another one we're in. We have Grandmothers Club. And we are so thankful, especially for the folks in Lesotho who started the Grandmothers Club, because they realized when they were in Lesotho that there was a big gap. So many of those, the middle people, those in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s have died because of the pandemic. And what the persons who were left were grandmothers and the orphans. And Giordano said, I think we need to have this ministry called Grandmothers Club. Okay, and that is also the brochure that we also circulated. It's what we call a bookmark for people to be able to know about HIV. And of course, we know that women are disproportionately affected with HIV compared to men. And you can see actually this slide here where in many countries, really women, for instance, South Africa, women about 13.1% between 15 to 24, but for men about only 4%. And that's the reason we came up really with a special program that would be addressing the needs of women. Okay. And we're so glad to have Cape Conference. So many of these conferences, this is just an example. And this conference which was done together with Mrs. Papu. And I know that you're also doing, because I have also interfaced with women's ministries. One of the effective ways that we can really propel this ministry is to engage with women. When women are going to have meetings, you can really see that they come in numbers. One time we had it in Kenya, in West Kenya, I think it was in somewhere there. And we had about 5,000 women who attended. Okay, another thing is that HIV also affects a lot of young people. Can you see? 1 in 4 is between 13 to 24. Young people. Now, what are we doing for this subset of people? Because we have a high prevalence rate. And the thing is that it's so bad, they get HIV at a young age, then they have it for life. We again are so glad that we have the program of the church. You can see, the church has really several programs. I already mentioned about celebrations for lifestyle. We were using Health Expos to be able to screen people. We were using women's ministry. So another program for the church that we can utilize is actually Youth Alive for the prevention program for our young people. And this is the brochure that Dr. Giordano developed about young people, how we can actually treat them, because you see, there are a different subset of people, and I'm so glad that we have Dr. Papu here, who's going to help us how we can address young people. Now, we have a problem these days because children who were born in 1990, 2000, now they have become adults. And I think it is very important that we realize that we have to do something for them, because they did not get that out of their volition. They get it because they were born to parents. And now, they're already now adults. How are we addressing their needs? One of the things that we need to address is, they would like to be having children, just like to have normal parents, normal couples with marriage. But then it's either one is positive or both of them are positive. How are you going to do that? And we know there are now means by which they can actually have children without transmitting the disease. And that is what we have to do. We have to offer them, because many of them do not know that they can actually have children and yet do not transmit their disease to their offsprings. Well, I don't know whether Dr. Bergdan is going to be here to address the issue of stigma and discrimination. I tell you, it was so thick in the ground when HIV first started. And I think it is still present, but in a lesser form, but it is still there. What we did is that we developed a brochure addressing the issue of stigma and discrimination, and even came up with a list on what will you consider a practice of stigma and discrimination. For instance, we had people who said that people would not sit beside them in church. We had a testimony from somebody who was suffering from HIV. And Dr. Landless had actually mentioned that there was this lady in her church who did not get a hug for 2 years because she was HIV positive. Those are all. Now, before, a lot of people would not even buy vegetables or food from people who are selling food because they are HIV positive. And I wonder about you, because I think some of us had that same idea. If somebody with HIV is going to sell food, vegetables, do not buy from them because you can get the disease. But I'm so glad because of this campaign of stigma against stigma and discrimination, it has actually helped to dispel the stigma and discrimination that was in the church. And this is one of the brochures. We came up with a system by which you would be able to know your degree of stigma and discrimination. This is an evaluation form wherein you tick yes or no, and at the end it's going to give you how seriously are you involved in stigma and discrimination. Maybe we should have circulated that here. Huh? One of the successes really of AIM is because we have support group. Support group in a sense that people come together who are suffering from HIV. But I know in many churches this was difficult to form because people were afraid to be associated with the disease. Sorry. But I'm so glad these days they're getting acceptance. But aside from that, the main reason why we have support group is to tell them about income generating projects. Okay? And thank God so many of our churches have been involved. These are just some of the income generating projects that we have. Bakeries, printed cloth, car washing even for income generation, chain link fence in Eswatini. These are actually people living with HIV. Of course, agriculture, fruits, groundnuts, beans, poultry, making bricks, ornamental flowers, gardening, hollow blocks machine, and I know this is being done here in Kenya by Kingero Church, and we are so thankful for ICPA who made that possible, because what we did was to link it also with alcoholism and also for the use of tobacco. And as we know, people who smoke, if they have HIV, accelerates the disease. We know that people who are having problems with alcoholism, if they take alcohol, they also die faster. This was especially true when there was no ARVs available. Making honey, sheep and goats in the Maasai, bead making, sewing, yogurt production, native baskets, and we have that in center, even here in Rwanda. I think one time we're going to be visiting these projects. Making detergent and soap. So I think you can identify what you are doing. This lady, for instance, Mary Wambui, she is from East Kenya Central Conference with John Okello. Initially, we only gave her what we call now, she's supporting her kids because of this retail shop. And some people are engaging in retail shop to support themselves. We gave her 1 goat. When we returned, she had already 6. See? Success stories. We gave her 2 chickens. In the end, she had 50 chickens. So I tell you, if you are able to motivate these people, and they should be able to support themselves, give them an initial capital. But many have actually made it because of the capital. Dried vegetables in Kenya. Also, boda boda, or what we call motorcycle. As you know, it's very popular these days. You have a motorcycle and you can pick up passengers. Here's another segment because we have what we call the Sisters of the Night. I hope you understand what I mean. And it's true, if you actually think, this is what they say, would rather die of AIDS than die of hunger. Because why? If you cannot eat for 3 or 4 weeks, you're going to die. But if you get AIDS, HIV, maybe it takes you 2 or 3 years or even 4 years. And especially if you have medication, you can actually survive. So you can see how logical the conclusion is for some of these women. They engage in selling their bodies because they realize that they need something to eat. And we're so glad that we also have some of those programs. I know Safi Bacano had actually made his report, okay, of these ladies of the night. And then we taught them how to do sewing. Can you see this one with Dr. Mangachuchu here? We were wondering because as they were trying to thread the needle, they had to squint their eye to be able to let the thread into the needle. So I think it's a problem with eyeglasses. And we supply them with eyeglasses. And I tell you, look at these ladies, how they rejoice with eyeglasses. That's why it's a matter of also spotting what are the needs of those people who are suffering from HIV. See, now they can even read the Bible. This lady is amazing. This is Kakusi Zidonia in Goma. You will notice that she has actually only one hand. Yeah, I'll show you the picture, okay? Can you see she has only a right hand and her left hand, okay, forearm is missing. But I tell you, she was engaged in what we call retail. We gave her a capital. What she would do was to buy in bulk sugar, buy in bulk oil, and repack them in small bits, and after that sell them so she has a profit. Not only that, but she's now sponsoring an orphan. And you will notice that there is this, on the right side, on the right extreme is a different, what we call room color, because the old one is on the left side. You will see that addition, she was able to build an additional room so that she used it for renting out and using the money to support the orphans. Thank you so much, Safi, for that. Okay? Now, this is Evelyn Ketua, who is the pioneer when it came to what we call Grandmother's Club. She is from Lesotho. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for this program. Elizabeth is with Lesotho. Unfortunately, we were not able to make her report yesterday because there was some technical glitch. Elizabeth Limakatso. And they, in fact, also revived this program of Grandmother's Club, okay? In Lesotho, where can you see Evelyn, and she has passed away with its child. And this is the guidelines that AIM did for people who are interested to form grandmothers clubs, okay? And I tell you, this has been very effective. So many orphans have been helped. Why is the church band together? And after that, they try to raise money to be able to support what we call community orphans. Let me just first see, okay? That's just one of the checks that were issued there for orphan, okay? We have a lot of orphans who have been helped. And what we do is that we're encouraging you to do community orphans, not institutional orphans, because it's very expensive. But I know some of our members, which I had shown yesterday, they embark on even converting their homes into orphans. But in that way, it is going to be costly and also difficult to maintain. Whereas if you have what we call community orphans, you have these orphans living with their relatives in the villages, and you try to help them with the uniforms, help them with food, and also help them with clothing. Okay. This is from Landi Mivak here in Bertua, Cameroon. These ladies, grandmothers, formed themselves to be able to help, I think, about 70 orphans. Okay. These are the orphans that they are helping through gardening, through buy and sell. Okay. As I said, home-based care had actually decreased due to ARVs, and we are so glad about it because ARVs really is able to perform a miracle in the lives of people. Okay, another resource material that we have is really human sexuality. And as we had mentioned, the strategy is that we have abstinence and faithfulness in marriage. And the thing is that we have to teach our children. But what is the material that we are going to use? You know, if we are not going to teach our children, the world is going to be the one to teach our children. You agree? There is now the internet. Many people have cell phones, and what they can do is just go to their cell phones. They go to the toilets and they see all of these drawings there, but I tell you, we have a big challenge. That's why first step really is to teach our children, because if we are going to have this prevention program, we have to teach especially our children and our young people about proper biblical sexual relationships. But are we doing that, or are we quiet, or are we embarrassed? For instance, if your child is going to ask you, Mommy, where do I come from? I'm sure many of you have been asked the question, what is your answer? Do we have regular sessions in our churches to be able to address this? Because I know many pastors are even reticent about it. Not only that, but even reluctant to teach about these very basic principles of the Bible. And this is the reason why we have this pandemic. It's because we have not done our job of teaching people about proper biblical sexual relationships. Or maybe I can ask the question, how did you get your sexual education? As we reflect to ourselves, you ask the question, how was I being taught? And the thing is that because our parents did not teach us, then we also are quite reluctant to teach our children, and we keep on continuing the same cycle. But I tell you, we need to break that. And this is a very valuable book. It's going to teach you about how to teach sexuality in different ages, 4 to 5, 8 to 10, 12 to 16. And we have this resource available. We are making also this resource available for school curriculum. Not only that, but I have also used this to be able to raise funds for people living with HIV. I told them, okay, we are going to sell this to you at the cost price, and after that you sell it, and then you can get whatever profit that you have to help you in your income. One of the things that we have to use is actually SID media, whatever media that you have. And I know all of us are exposed to media, whether it's going to be television, whether it's going to be internet or radio. This is a very effective way that we can propel the program. Okay? Radio, television. There was this script which was developed about the basics about HIV. And this was aired in SID media, television. And we have there Dr. Sikwa there with This Is My Health, wherein we actually explain about HIV, how people were able to recover. Use the media, okay? But very important, we also have a form. Whenever you're going to put people on the print, see to it that they have their consent. Please let them sign. We have a consent form wherein they say, we are willing to disclose, we are willing that we are going to show it in television, or else we are going to be in problems. Use the radio. I think this is it's Goma. Pastor Magachuchu, see? It's Baraton. Also, what we call in magazines, that's the SID, I would rather die than have HIV. Please use whatever materials that you have to spread about HIV. Okay, Adventist News Network even came up with an article for AIM. Okay, very important. As we had mentioned, Dr. Sikwa had mentioned, Dr. Landless mentioned, collaborate. Collaborate, because this pandemic is so huge, we cannot handle it by ourselves. We need to work together to make it successful. And one of the ways that we can be successful is to really work with governments, because governments have the program. I'm so glad this is actually taken with Ghana, okay? Botswana, interface with governments. Kenya, very supportive. Actually, so many governments are very supportive of the programs. All we have to do is to approach them. This is very interesting because I know that we are going to have a report about this from Dr. Mwati. You know, they made a study and they found out that here in Africa, 95% of all the people go to church. In whatever church there is. That means in order for the program to be effective, we need to engage with churches. And that is why USAID came up with the idea with John Snow, and they came up and said, you know, we want to use your churches to be a way of spreading and even utilizing it for the distribution of ARVs. We're going to hear more about that. But this is it. They are beginning to realize how important churches are, and they want to collaborate with us. Okay? Okay, we came up with the AIM Sabbath. Let me see those people who actually celebrated AIM Sabbath last November 28 last year. Let me see. Okay, good. That's good. And we're so glad that the General Conference also took the idea when we actually told them that we have to have an HIV Sabbath to create awareness. This Sabbath is the Sabbath before World AIDS Day, which is December 1. And we have distributed material. See, this is the flyer that we made on AIM Sabbath. And that is just one of the sermons that we had developed. Okay? And again, to be very effective, we need to collaborate with educational systems. We have collaborated with AUA. We have collaborated with UEAB, even AUCA. Okay. They in fact invited me one time to have 1 week here. Thanks to Dr. Eustace, Valley View. Asamang in Ghana, it's a midwifery school. Wardaso, see, hey, that's it, that's from you, okay, praise the Lord. Okay, now we have a series of WWW which has become defunct. That's all, but we are updating. The latest one is the one that we have. That's the one, isn't it? Adventist AIDS International Org, and we are going to load all the materials to this. Yeah, they're still actually working on it, but we are starting with all the presentations. So we are reiterating, those of you who presented and even you have reports, I suggest that you give it to our technician here who is going to compile all of them so that we are going to post it in the web. But that's the new website for Adventist AIM. Yeah? International. So let me now thank our esteemed donors. First of all, we thank the General Conference with Dr. De Los Santos here for their continued support in this ministry. I tell you, without the General Conference and the divisions, I don't think this is going to fly. So first of all, I would like to say thank you to East Central African Division. Let me see now the people who are the members of the EXCOM for ECD. I'd like to thank you. Okay, but anyway, ECD, and we thank you especially ECD because most of our advisories were really done at the ECD. We thank the ECD, okay? We would like to thank West Central African Division, Dr. Robert Osei Bonsu, okay? Praise the Lord for your contribution. Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division, Pastor Akombo is not here, but Dr. Papu is here to represent actually the SID. Thank you so much, because these are really the ones that are main supporters for the ministry. We would like to take Vista Clinic and the Adventist Professional Health and Humanitarian Services. Since 2007, they have been consistent donors to this ministry. They have a regular budget every year to be able to give it to this, what we call ministry. Now, I'd like to request those people who are members of the board to please stand up, because really, this is the main, aside from the GC, this APHHS is giving, the money that you are receiving from our projects really come from here. Can I ask the board members, Dr. Shongwe, and also past members, Pastor Mdululi, Dr. Landless, who is actually the chair. Okay, who else? Patsua. Stand first. Okay. Well, can we give them a big hand? Thank you. Because of them, we have what we call a regular budget when it comes to projects. And I think Dr. Sikwa is going to give us guidelines on how we can utilize this money, because we are going to do it on a cost-sharing basis. Not only that, but also look into your proposals. Okay? Sorry, Dr. Landless, but you're going to have to stand twice. ICPA has also been a very big donor. Dr. Landless is the ICPA Executive Director, as the chairperson for APHHS. And we thank you so much, Dr. Landless. And as I mentioned, Dr. Landless has been with us since the very beginning of AAIM in 2002. Can you please again stand and let us give Dr. Landless a very big hand, a round of applause. But we are not yet still finished in honoring you. Okay? Thank you so much, Dr. Landless, for your leadership. I have been tremendously blessed together with Dr. De Los Santos, both your leadership. Okay? And of course, ADRA. I mentioned to you that when we started this ministry, we had ADRA at the board. We had Mike Nigeri. And one of the things that he developed was this training of trainers. And this has been a very valuable program because so many people were saved, so many lives were saved because of the program. What we did was that we trained trainers and they went to the villages and really spread the word, and people could come to them and ask them for consultation. This is actually, okay, this is one of those meals which was donated by ADRA, okay? And ADRA, what we call collaborated, got in touch with the Swedish Mission Council, and the Swedish Mission Council had ever since 2004 up to now, and I think Priska is going to make a report, but I tell you, it started in 2004 with Mike Nigeri coming up with a proposal, and ever since that time, we have worked together. But the good thing with the Swedish Mission Council is that we tell them, look here, our position when it comes to HIV is based on the Bible. She said, no problem, you can actually use that. We even help to give people with a voice of prophecy. And she said, no problem, you can actually do that. So this is a wonderful collaboration with the Swedish Mission Council, because they also honor our principles, but at the same time, they do not object if we tell them about our faith. In fact, they said it's very important because we found out that faith would also help to prevent the spreading of HIV. Okay? So those are actually the programs since 2004 up to the present. And the current program, which is the Youth Empowerment Program, is in 5 countries: Lesotho, Swaziland, Namibia, Zambia, and Mozambique, which will expire, I think, in 2005, okay? Now, how is the AAIM fulfilling the mission of the church? And that is very important because in whatever we do, we have to really relate to the mission of the church. Remember, that is the mission of the church. We say, to spread the everlasting gospel in the context of the 3 angels' messages. It's very important, 3 angels' messages. And remember, when we are going to see 3 angels' messages, we say, Babylon is full. Come out of her, my people. And we are telling people, come out in your immoral habits. And we know that a lot of this HIV is because of disregard to the commandments of God. So this in itself, we're telling people to come out from these worldly practices. Not only that, but I pray that all of us are going to be involved in concrete evangelistic meetings. Now, whether it's going to be formal evangelistic meetings or really making it a deliberate choice to tell people about the Bible. Okay, this was done. We had, I think, this in Congo. Okay. Okay, some of these orphans in Bertua, in Cameroon, got baptized because of the Advent message. And this is it. We should not forget, because We'd be giving ARVs, but we may be able to lengthen life for another 30, 40 years. But what is that compared if we are going to give them the gospel? We give them eternal life. And that is what is important. Okay? And of course, this was in Ethiopia, wherein we did an evangelistic meeting, and we were able to have baptisms. So I pray that with this would give you an idea of what we have resources, and at the same time, the programs that we need to embark in Adventist AIDS International Ministries. I thank God, number one, for all of His leadings, making this possible. This ministry has really brought a lot of people to know about the truth, not only that, but something also Jesus Christ. And I would like to especially thank individually all of you for your participation. God bless you all. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Lagunu, for this extensive report. And I will request, before we close, I will request again the Cantante Domino choir to come here and have. the Katante Domino Choir. Thank you. That was a beautiful song. Thank you very much. May God bless you. We will have a group picture now. Please, the photographer wants us to stand on the stairs. Can you walk out and stand on the stairs? Just one by one. Not one place. You could use all the stairs. So the photographer, please, can you go out for a photo? And then come back. We have one more presentation by Dr. Paul Chirima. And then we'll have a discussion, question and answer time for 15 and 20 minutes.
All right, while we're taking the photo, please take note. No one should stand on the platform on the floor. We should all be on the stairs. Let us all occupy the stairs. No one stands on the veranda by the door. Let's all climb up on the stairs and stand together. Thank you.
1, 2. Heart's desire another to worship thee. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. You alone are my run, my shield. To you alone are my strength, my shield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship thee. I'm looking at it. You, my friend, and I, my brother, and I know underneath. I love you, than my heart desire, and I long to Give thanks. Give thanks. Thank you, Bonsu. You alone know my heart desire.
Back, please. Coming back, please.
Oh, quickly. 2.
Hello.
As the deep panted for.
No, it's because I want to announce something. Can we come back in, please? Can we do, we are marching to Zion. Let's come back, please. We want to have more time for discussion. Start, please. But love the Lord. Let our joys be known. Joining the song with sweet accord. Joining the song with sweet accord. And thus around the throne, and thus surround the throne. We are marching to Zion. Beautiful, beautiful Zion. We are marching upwards to heavenly Zion, the beautiful city of God. The hill of Zion is a thousand sacred sweet. Before we reach the heavenly dream, before we reach the heavenly dream, walk the golden streets, walk the golden streets. We are marching to Zion, beautiful, beautiful Zion. We are marching upwards to heavenly Zion, the beautiful city of God. Yeah, I have one announcement before we start. I'll give to you. We are going to be making a very special memorial. I have a t-shirt here that anybody who wants to be remembered here, you just write your name. I have a permanent marker. You write your name and your country, not your institution, not your division, your country, okay? So it's going to be passing around and I'll be watching it. You write your name and your country. It's not obliged, but it's a good idea if you want to be in this book, okay? Thank you. If anybody still has not registered for the trip, this is the last time I'm talking about it, because over lunchtime I'll be submitting all the names. So register with your unions, and your unions will bring the list to me. I can't handle everybody coming, but if the union leaders will bring the list to me, that will really help. And when we go for lunchtime, can I see all the union health directors? Union health directors, please remain after all these proceedings when you go for lunch. Union health directors, remain very shortly. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, can I have your attention? Okay, thank you very much. We are continuing with our presentation. The last one for today, no, for this afternoon before lunch, will be presented by Dr. Paul Chima. Currently, he is the Health Ministries Director of West Central Africa Division and also AAIM coordinators for WAD. He'll be speaking on social issues on HIV/AIDS. Dr. Paul.
Good morning once again. Are we together? Good. It is a privilege to talk on social issues evolving around HIV/AIDS. This is what has been given to me to share with you this material moment. Thank you very much for your audience. In this presentation, we will be looking at introductory aspects of the presentation. We will also evaluate social issues of HIV/AIDS. As part of this presentation, we will also look at HIV/AIDS statistics with its impact and the key affected populations. Social issues affecting people living with HIV/AIDS. We will spend much time on this component. And consequences of not dealing with the social issues of people living with HIV/AIDS. Also, we will be looking at the preventive strategies and programs. Above all, there is a recommendation. After which, we will evaluate together summary and conclusions of the presentation. The world is facing one of the most devastating pandemics in the modern history, which has to do with HIV/AIDS. And this HIV/AIDS is infecting and killing millions of people, especially those of us in Africa. It has a far-reaching negative impact in the context of social issues facing its victims. Though there has been an immense progress on prevention, treatment, and reduction of infections, yet social issues of HIV is still a political burden on economy. It has to do with ethical and moral concerns, and also it is a pressing global public health issue which we all need to discuss. As we all know, human beings are social beings. God created us to live with one another rather than being alone. But we have seen that as a result of HIV, some of our brothers and sisters are living alone. There may be issues living together, but they must be addressed so that our existence will be meaningful. From the Bible, it has been enshrined in the Holy Word that, and the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. God gave man a woman. And as social beings, we should be able to live together. Let us evaluate social issues. What are social issues? When it made mention of social issues, what comes into the mind? From Encyclopedia Britannica, scholars have given us the following. A state of affairs that negatively affect the personal or social lives of individuals. Either individuals or the well-being of a community or communities or large groups within a society. There is usually public disagreement as to its nature, causes, or solution. So we are here scaling it down. We are here looking at HIV, AIDS, social issues. Issues we are confronting as individuals, as a community, as a faith-based community, as organizations, and also as a nation. Talking about social issues evolving around HIV is we can't do away with social and behavioral challenges our people facing the problem are going through. And also social issues of HIV, it is a foundation of every aspect of HIV/AIDS. Have this in mind. And also, it is a key to unlock both psychological and emotional shackles of facing people living with HIV. Let us evaluate HIV statistics with its impact. Globally, it has been established that about 38 million people have been diagnosed or are living with a condition. When we scope to our continent of Africa, out of these 38 million, 25.6 million are living on the continent of Africa. When we also look at the infection rate, about 1.5 million was recorded globally. And when we scale it down to Africa, Africa alone constitutes about 610,000. Again, when you look at the death rate, globally, we have 650,000. And when you scale it down to Africa, Africa alone constitutes 460,000. Therefore, in terms of percentages, what comes into the mind, or what are we taking home? In terms of percentages, people living with HIV/AIDS, Africa constitutes around 68%, and the new cases 40%, and then with it deaths about 71%. What does this tell you? This tells you that it is a problem in Africa, and it is moving along with social issues which has to be addressed. Out of an estimated 26.6 million people living with HIV/AIDS on the continent of Africa, it has been documented that 90% know their status, and 82% are receiving treatment, and 76% had suppressed viral loads. And then two tests representing 25.6 million of global HIV/AIDS is in the whole Africa region, as we have already established. And we know that in Africa, when we talk of countries who are leading in terms of HIV, we know the statistics already. Therefore, there is no need to spend much time, which tells us that it is a problem. We should be able to appreciate the problem before we be able to delve into the social issues. What are the key affected populations? We are going to deal with the specifics. And dealing with the specifics tells us that as a continent, we are sitting on a time bomb. We are sitting on a time bomb because when we scope our presentation or our focus to West and Central Africa regions of the continent, there is a picture which is not good to look at. But there is a need for us to evaluate together. A reasonable number of children in the Western and Central Africa region are HIV positive. And it has been documented that 26% of the world children population living HIV AIDS are in these regions, with its infection rate constitute 38%. Therefore, if more than a quarter of the world population living with HIV among children are in these two sub-regions, then it tells you that there is a problem which we should be able to look into. If care is not taken, going into the future, our health system may break down. Therefore, there is a need to address some of these things. Indeed, we are sitting on a time bomb, and if care is not taken, it will surely explode. Looking at the key affected population, we have also seen that adolescent young women are seriously affected, and then the sex workers and their clients, LGBT groups, they are also affected population. People who inject drugs, the affected population, and then those with multiple sexual partners and others. As a church, these are some of the things we should be able to look into so that we will be able to help our people. Social issues affecting people living with HIV/AIDS. When you look at a picture on the screen, you can see a family, or let me ask, what do you see? There is a girl who has been isolated, and there is a gap between the girl and the entire family. Look at how the mother is looking at her, and look at how the father is as well looking at her. Look at how the siblings are also looking at her. It looks as if he has killed the entire world population. We are treating her this way because she has been diagnosed with HIV. So this is a key issue which we need to look into as a church. Other major social issues has to do with stigma and exclusions. There is a stigma in the society, a stigma in the church, a stigma in our health places, and even in our hospitals, there is a stigma. As well as our workplaces, there is a stigma. In fact, yesterday night, I chanced on the document being published in Nigeria, and it is a good document to share with you. Nigerian law protects discriminating against people living with HIV, which is true, and as well as other parts of the continent. The National Institute Court of Nigeria recommends how to eradicate HIV-related employment terminations. Because of HIV, some are losing their jobs. This was published in the Age of Human Rights Journal. Because of HIV, some are losing their jobs. Some are losing their families. What are we doing as a church? What are we doing as individuals? What can we do to save the situation? It is for this reason we've been gathered here to equip ourselves with tools. What does HIV stigma looks like? This is a key social issue which we need to address. Let us look at the birds. There are 4 birds. 3 have gathered at one place and 1 is somewhere else. Because of HIV/AIDS, if the church is treating you this way, how would you feel? Because of HIV/AIDS, if the society is treating you this way, how would you feel? This tells us that we are to come together to fight against stigmatization, which is a key component when you talk about social issues affecting people with HIV/AIDS. Let us also look at this picture. What comes into the mind? What do you see? It's someone is sitting somewhere. The rest are enjoying themselves. This person has been isolated from the community because of his health status. As a church, what can we do to bridge the gap? As health workers, as individuals, what can we do to bridge the gap? Whilst we are evaluating social issues affecting people with HIV, it has also been enshrined, and there is no fallacy in this, that those living with HIV have series of doubts. Failing to accept tested positive results. For instance, when they go for screening and they tell them, hey, sister, brother, you are positive. We've been tested HIV. At times, because of stigma, because of some of these social issues we face, they find it difficult to accept. And also, there is a fear. The fear of disclosure of the status. Whom am I to disclose my status? Is it my wife? Is it my husband? Is it my friends? And then it has become a problem. There is this problem because of exclusions, because of how we would treat them in the society. Therefore, there is a need for us to work around this, to develop models, programs, intervention strategies to solve this challenge. There was a research in Turkey, Izmir city. In Izmir city, only 50% of the patients had shared their status with their spouses. Only 50%. We expect that it will be 100%. Only 50% because of fear, because of how we would treat them afterwards. Therefore, people find it difficult. When this was published in Turkey, 11 years later, similar research also took place in Ghana, in Volta region. And let us evaluate the study results. And predictors of HIV status disclosure among people living with HIV in Ghana. Okay? From this study, this was the result. HIV status self-disclosure was reported by 50% of the respondents. Nearly 65% disclosed their status to non-family members and non-parents. Significant correlates of HIV status disclosure either to partners or non-partners were marital status, monthly income, type of occupation, and be divorced due to HIV status with a p-value of 0.5. Okay? It means it is highly significant. From the conclusion of this study, HIV status disclosure remained low in Ghana, like many African countries. There is a need for a review policy to address some of this issue. So it is not only in Turkey, but Ghana also, it is a challenge. I chanced on another literature from International Journal of African Nursing Sciences with a caption, HIV status disclosure among adults attending care and the treatment clinic in Kilimburu district, southern eastern Tanzania. And this is the study result. It will interest you to know that a total of 102 participants, with 63% females and 39% of them were males. Only 58 had disclosed their HIV result to their partners. Only 58. Most delayed the disclosure for 6 months and above. HIV disclosure was significantly higher in married participants than in single individuals, which has to do with 81 and 63. The major reasons for non-disclosure include fear of losing their partners, felt ashamed of being HIV positive, and fear of stigma. This is a key component when we are talking about social issues facing our brothers and sisters with HIV. Therefore, what can we do? What should we do? How do we solve this challenge to bridge the gap, to boost confidence level? My wife shared this with me from her experience when she was working in HIV unit. Sharing status with spouses became a challenge, but males are more likely to share their status with their spouses. So I tried to delve into literature to find if we can substantiate this. And a paper was published in Paris, and this research was done in Cote d'Ivoire. Disclosure of HIV positive status, gender differences within temprano trial participants, Cote d'Ivoire. And let us look at the study result. It's so fantastic. HIV status disclosure was frequent, more than 80% among HIV patients, with no difference between men and women. Men were more frequently disclosed to a regular partner than women. So, meaning what my wife was telling me has been confirmed. Men were even disclosing more frequently to their partners. And women disclose more often than men to their children, siblings, and mothers. Their confidence were more often women, sisters, mothers, than men, brothers, and fathers. Meaning their confidence level in us, in the men, is questionable. Therefore, we should be able to take advantage on this to scale down intervention model, to scale up the confidence level. Another social issue which we should be able to tackle has to do with misconception on mode of transmission. In fact, there is a misconception. Some are of the strongest opinion that the virus spread through casual contacts. And even some are even defending that by witches and witchcrafts in Africa. At times, the media also fabricate false rumors on the transmission of the virus. Therefore, those who are not exposed to the facts about this will take the false or the rumor, and then it becomes a problem. As a church, what can we do? We should be able to tailor a program to meet this challenge when we return from here. Lack of social support and feeling of being excluded from the society, denying of housing accommodation, family tax, and physical abuse are issues our brothers and sisters living with HIV are facing, as I've already shared with you. Many feel uncomfortable around living with people having HIV. I have a question, and the question is rhetoric. He has HIV, you have cancer, you have stroke, you have diabetes. What makes the difference? Even the risk of heart attack or cardiac arrest is even more serious than even HIV. We should understand some of these fundamentals, and it will help us to protect one another and also to help those living with a condition. We should be able to accept, embrace them. Some are exposed to violence for being HIV positive. There is also erroneous assumptions and judgment. Adults or people living with HIV had it through sexual contact. It is wrong assumption. Some have been diagnosed with, it is not always the medications. They want to take it even in privacy. We need intervention models. We need strategies to break these barriers as a church. It is for this reason we are here. Limited job opportunities we should promote, leading to decreased income. From the previous presentation, we saw that those with HIV, they need income. If we deny them jobs, how do they raise income to boost their health status and increase treatment cost? It's also a problem. Even staff living with HIV in healthcare facilities conceal their status for fear of being stigmatized by their colleagues. It is happening even in health settings, even in hospitals. Those who have the conditions, even among technocrats, professionals, we even feel shy to disclose our identity. This also tells us that we have a work to do in our hospitals. How do we break this barrier? There is a need to come out with intervention models to address this barrier. It will surprise you to know that some healthcare personnel are unwilling to treat people living with HIV. Someone was sharing her experience with me. She went to one of the hospitals. The patient went to the care provider. And then either the physician or server asked the person, when he went through the history, he saw that, oh, she is HIV. Mama, wait. The one who will take care of you will come tomorrow. And this is happening even in healthcare institutions. Look at the picture, the second picture. This woman is delivering. Look at the distance between her and the midwife, even in a hospital. Because the woman has been tested positive. So the midwife even doesn't want to get closer to provide the needed essential services. It is an issue which we need to address. Consequences of not dealing with the social issues evolving around HIV. This is a nut we are to crack. With the speed of light, fear of accessing healthcare, and also increase of national budget on health. If we don't deal with this, people are not accessing healthcare, then the infections will go up. There will be high death rate and a lot of problems, and also increase of national budget, high tendencies of spreading of HIV. When we stigmatize, when we exclude them, when we treat them badly, some of them have the stronger opinion that I will pay the society with their own coin. Then they keep on spreading. And then there is a high level of poverty among them. And then they'll be giving birth to more children living with the condition. Before I retire to my seat, let us look at some of the preventive strategies and programs. Education and training for healthcare professionals on medical missionary as a divine calling is essential. If we will accept, embrace that we've been called by God, then we will deal nicely with them. Most of transmissions and universal precautions needs to be emphasized day by day. Protecting patient privacy and confidentiality is a key. Promoting compassion, not judgment, is also a key or a fear in our clinics. Ending discrimination against people living with HIV is highly essential. Healthcare settings should be the home for our friends living with this condition. And proactive leadership against discriminatory practices is highly recommendable, or is a concern. And clear policies protecting people living with HIV rights in the health care setting is highly essential. We are to invest in evidence-based HIV prevention programs and also improve access to healthcare, testing, and antiretroviral treatments. And then we are to protect human rights of key populations. The role of a nation. We have a lot to share. And then let us look at the key role as a faith-based organization. Some of the things we should be able to look at. Church have high positive social capital. As a church, we have a high social positive capital, a positive social capital, and leverage to scale down the problem. Therefore, it should be intentional policy direction, reflecting in our programs, plans, models, and allocation of resources to achieve the objective by targeting the clergy and the elders to embrace the products and the concepts. Church communities should intentionally create a social buffer system. It is a key. So we have a lot later. You see it from the presentation, from your slides. Preventive programs, widespread presence, and trusted voice in communities, or voices in communities. Integrate HIV response into existing programs. Opportunities for prevention through discipleship. A model of holistic care for mind, body, and the spirit. Recommendations. Prevention in educational settings. We are to improve knowledge, attitude, sound ethical practices, and belief regarding people living with HIV. Also, under this component, we are to develop or to come out with checklists. Promote sound economic directions in connection with health and development. People living with HIV should be financially sound to afford better nutrition, medical services, and the rest. The youth and the children ministries, manual and educational materials to teach social issues surrounding people living with HIV right from the infancy up to adulthood. And then the frontline ministers are to prepare lessons to address this issue with passion and care. In conclusion, more than 38 million people living with HIV in the world, with more than 25 million in Africa. Anybody can be infected by the virus. People living with HIV virus are human beings like us. The stigma will not reduce or cure the disease. It will increase the spread. We are to treat people living with HIV with care and compassion. We are to end stigmatization and discrimination against them with equal access to all services as well as opportunities. With coordinated multi-sectorial action involving faith-based organizations like the Seventh-day Adventist Church, guided by evidence and compassion, will turn the tide on this pandemic.
Any?
Sorry, if you look at your program, you will notice that you are supposed to have had a presentation on stigma and discrimination. Unfortunately, at the last minute, Dr. Beckland had a challenge to come here. But he has made a video recording of the presentation he was going to make. It's going to be online on the website. You can be able to download that. It's a long document. You need to be on good network. It's 23 minutes, but he has recorded his presentation. And he has also sent the slides. So when you are looking at the presentation, you will find the slides for that presentation, and you'll find an audio-video recording we apologize that he couldn't be around.
All right. Thank you very much. Do you have any question for the three presenters? Can you raise your hand? Maybe in this row? Yes, okay. 1, 2, 3. Please. Could you help me? Yes, okay. Please come in.
Good afternoon. My name is Muntanga. I'm from Zambia. I'm not really sure who to address the question, but I just wanted to say that the church responded to the HIV/AIDS pandemic from what has been presented. And now there's that continued response, and we already heard how the response, particularly to HIV, sort of got muted along the way, and now we are trying to revive it. And we've just come from the COVID pandemic, which again, people are still suffering the consequences of that. I was just thinking that maybe looking at where we are going, is it possible, is it okay if the church can come up with, I don't know whether it's a department for epidemic preparedness, so that our responses as a church are timely? Because a lot of times as Adventists, we are faced with a lot of issues. For example, the misinformation on vaccines, the misinformation on transmission of HIV. We do get information, but sometimes it comes in late when we have already been bombarded with a lot of other information, which to a greater extent is quite misleading. So that would be my suggestion. Can we have a committee which will be timely and monitor the world trends, so that if we are slipping back, there can be that quick response? I submit. Thank you.
Is being asked, what is the church doing? Those who were at the worship this morning would remember that that's one of the things. A very important question. May I just tackle, and I'm going to ask Dr. Zina to talk about some of the emergency preparedness. Tackle the issue of, you mentioned the pandemic, the recent pandemic. The church reacted in 2015 when a statement was put up regarding the church's approach to immunization. Now we're talking about disinformation because you specifically mentioned, and I agree with you, we had a tremendous problem, and we still have. Following the pandemic, there has been an unbelievable increase in vaccine hesitance. We see measles is resurging. Already it was occurring a little bit before the pandemic, but it's much worse now. Did the church react? I remember, because I was the director at the point in 2015 when, not knowing there was going to be a pandemic, we thought we need to put at least an understanding of what the church has in relationship to immunization. So yes, I think we put it up in good time, not knowing that there was going to be something coming. The issue of getting information out immediately with the pandemic, we did. We did. Was it enough? It never is enough. To the extent that we were cancelling meetings, including 2 cancellations of GC session, where we were held a little accountable by a group of the church who felt that this was totally unnecessary. But when all responsible agents were doing exactly the same thing, we come to the consultation with those who are monitoring world situations. Interestingly, the World Health Organization, Pan American Health Organization, those large groups, including CDC, were caught by surprise on the pandemic. It doesn't mean to say that we should say, well, because others were caught by surprise, we shouldn't. But we really don't have the infrastructure, nor would it be a wise use of our resources to have a monitoring committee. What we do have is we have relationships with the most influential and also well-informed public health organizations, WHO, Pan American Health, Bloomberg School of Public Health, other schools, including Loma Linda School of Public Health. We work very, very consistently to get information. When it comes to the disinformation, sadly, there is a proclivity. What I mean by a proclivity, there is a tendency within our church for people to wish to make every public disaster or problem a sign of the end. We want to shoehorn, you know what a shoehorn is? When you can't fit your foot in the shoe, you take something and you force it into the shoe, right? So we take our theology, we believe in Jesus soon coming, there's a pandemic, there's a vaccine, mark of the beast. Brothers and sisters, what are we thinking of? I mean, really, I've had gray hair for a long time. I said this to my girls. They said, Dad, your hair's not gray, it's white. I said, because of the pandemic. The saints went berserk. Disinformation, believing that there was going to be a little chip injected into the arm. You know, we're not going to take over and talk the pandemic situation. But how many of you have got smartphones? I believe everybody here has a smartphone. Do you think that people need to put a chip in you to know where you are? They know where you are. Do they need to know, do they have a chip in your arm or in your body to know when you're going through an international border? We're at the point where we don't even show our passports anymore. They take a picture, they hold you from it, and they say, now let me see your passport. Yes, it's you, go. So we need to be very careful. Where the education needs to come on an ongoing basis is what we've talked about today. Is the prevention, preparation, and now we come to another very important thing. One other thing. We talked about getting the information out on the vaccine, for example, and on the approach to COVID-19. Unequivocally, the church's main approach in every health setting is to follow our basic health principles. From cancer to COVID, we live healthfully as we can, but then we do best medical practices as well. So let's not forget that. We need to educate our people. We need to help them understand how prevalent disinformation is, how to interpret information, because you can go to a website to prove anything you want to. We need to help them to go to reliable websites. The question of disaster preparedness is very, very important. Very important. And that is something which we pay good attention to, and Dr. Zena has a particular interest in this. You want to talk a minute about that?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Yes, I think it's very important that we be concerned about what is going to come our way. Disasters will happen, and more disasters will come. Our eschatology, we already know that this is what's going to happen. So over the last few years, we've been working along with the divisions that have also shown interest in this and help them to have plans for preparedness for any kind of disaster, including what would be an epidemic or a pandemic. Also, the church has a mechanism, at least two mechanisms, one through Adventist Community Services. Do you have Adventist Community Services in your area? All right. That is part of the mandate of Adventist Community Services, disaster preparedness and disaster relief. Okay? And of course, we also have ADRA, which is on the other side of Adventist approaches to disaster management. So perhaps we can do more coordination to be able to home in on these specific kinds of disasters that can happen. But I think we're doing something. We may need to do a little bit more to coordinate the activity so that we're not caught by surprise the next thing that happens. All right? Thank you.
Would urge you to go to healthministries.com. Have any of you been to healthministries.com? How many of you have registered as leaders on healthministries.com? I want to see the hands high. Okay, you're not going to get the value of the website. You'll see the overview. But if you want to get into the resources, you want to get the information where all the information has been posted, register as a leader, you'll get access to get into the actual resource themselves. You'll be able to see the videos better. You'll be able to, and you can also ask questions. Dr. Reinhardt is our in charge of our website and doing an excellent job. And she monitors it daily, many times a day. She lives on this thing. And we're thankful for that. So please go and register, use the materials, follow them up, and where there are questions, working together, and we've worked very closely with the division directors, with the AIM office director, to get you the best information at the best time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Landless and Dr. Charles Marcel, for those answers. I've seen 2 hands there. Okay. Okay, those 3 hands.
Thank you. I am Moyabala Muna from Eswatini Conference, SID. I have a question and then I have 2 comments. The question is to the Executive Director for AAIM, and it is about the vision. She gave us the mission and the vision of the ministry. I would like to understand whether there is a difference between the mission and the vision. And then also I would like to understand whether there is a time span to the vision and what is our preferred future. What do we want to see happen in future in terms of our ministry? Something that relates to the HIV either as a pandemic or as a condition in the church. That one, I think maybe you understand what I mean by that, because I thought that the vision and the mission were almost something like the same, but I want to see if there's a difference. But on my comments, I would like to say that we are a ministry of healing. Probably the word ministry or health ministries have also kind of made us to wrap our messaging and everything around what the health is. But from the Adventist health message, we are really a ministry of healing, and that is a very big difference. I would like to say that the ministry, AIDS ministry, is something that we can answer that it is a ministry and is different from hypertension, diabetes, and others like Dr. Balaguno did ask, but I didn't really perceive the answer to that. But for me, it's a ministry because we are mandated to look after the body of our church members. And somehow AIDS or HIV has really come to the core of disturbing what God created the body to be able to do on its own. We all meet germs, but we don't get sick because our body is able to fight. We are being protected by the mechanism God put in place. But HIV came and unsettled that. And like Dr. Laguno said, like our executive director said, we are all under threat. We are all under threat of losing this immunity which God has given us. And finally, I would like to comment to say the education that we need our members to end stigma is really understanding our belief system. If we believe biblically, we will understand that we are all sinners. So when someone has HIV, even if we can think that we are taught of HIV as being promiscuity or from being sexual problems, the fact of the matter is sin brings consequences, and one of those consequences is HIV. So we must be able to remove the stigma from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Without being academic about it, when you ask about the mission and vision, I don't know. Just from the strategic part of it, usually when you talk about strategy, you will talk about what is the vision and the understanding being, where do you visualize yourself to get to? Where are you trying to get to? So that is, even our vision is crafted with that kind of thing in mind. And remember we said we are an organization of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Therefore, our vision is encapsulated in the vision of the church. We cannot be having a vision that is at cross purpose with the vision of the church. And it's for that reason that you see the vision going in and acknowledging the I will go, and acknowledging that a vision is about a place in time. The ultimate vision is to go to heaven. And the ultimate vision, as the church vision puts it, is to see God's image being reborn in his children, and to have a heaven on earth. That will be the ultimate vision. But as we take it now, we take it from one strategic impetus to the next. So you will see that our vision is not short-sighted, but it is within the bigger vision that is there, and it often gets crafted within the vision of the strategy of the time, because this is where we are going to be going. Our mission, Dr. Laguno shared the mission of the church, which we know as coming from the mission that Jesus gave us to go into the world. So the mission then that we are having as HIV is in a way to say, as a church we are go ye therefore into the world. But as AIM, we are not just going, we are going with a specific purpose, because as I presented that we are a particular niche, and this is a niche ministry. Therefore, as a niche ministry, we are going to the world, but we are going within the mandate that we are having. But our mandate is still the same mandate within the bigger context, because it is of caring and sharing. But ours is much, much more specific. And so I don't know if I'm answering you, because I'm not so sure where the question was coming from, but we can take this one outside court because there are other people who need to, I believe, also take out their ideas. Yes. He was adding that as we are going, it's also work in process. And by the way, remember that when we are talking diseases and pandemics, they are perpetually evolving. And therefore, there is always room. If you look at the mission that was in the old time, and we'll talk about this in the afternoon on our rebranding, you will notice that our mission as AIM has been evolving over time. So at this point in time, this is where we are.
Okay. Thank you very much. We have 10 minutes more, left. So we need short question and short answers.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm Georgia Quay
Yes.
from. Hello? I'm here. Are you not seeing me?
Okay. All right. No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
I'm Georgia Quay from Liberia. And I just wanted to buttress what Dr. Landless mentioned. As it relates to some of the information we need, especially in country, to see how we can promote the issues that comes out in the church, you also have to liaise with the government agency. Usually you have mandates coming up from Ministry of Health with key information that you should be able to send out there to your church members. And I had a first-hand experience when we had the endemic of Ebola. I think you all heard about Ebola in Liberia. It was very deadly. And I was working as a nurse at the time. So you can imagine the fear, the stigma, and everything we are discussing here. So looking at some of the issues as it relates to the health situations that arise in country is actually based on the context of your country, the situations you face with, some of the partners that you have working in country, you collaborate with them and get the key information, and then you'll be able to relate that to your church members. So even for us, for COVID-19, I had to liaise with the Ministry of Health to ensure that all the church members, officials from the union, the conference, were vaccinated. So they sent a team to our church, and we booked a particular hall that everyone gathered at, and the health workers came and administered the vaccines. And so there were a lot of issues about the different misinformation about the vaccine, and people kept asking, what is the General Conference saying about this vaccine? Like we mentioned about the chip into your arm. Some people say it's a light bulb that you insert. And so we had to really keep engaging the congregation, going around and creating key messages that we send out on our platforms. Every Sabbath, we promote the different issues that are arising. So I think we can all learn from some of these to see how we can improve. So don't forget, there are always information on the website. Liaise with your country, your partners, and the Ministry of Health will always have information relating whatever pandemic or epidemic that is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Patrick, there's one more question and then we want to close. We just left us 5 minutes. Okay. Could you make it a short question? Okay. All right. Here says 1 minute. We can have 2 more.
I think all of us do want to make comments. Maybe if we can accommodate each other by making short comments, then we can take more hands.
Je vais parler en français, je ne sais pas si j'aurai un interprète.
Which language?
French.
French. Tracing for French. My elder. There, to the other side.
He needs a translator.
Okay. Merci.
Yeah.
Okay. J'ai 3 petites questions et je serai complété par Dr. Mukimbi.
I have 3 small questions.
Et nous remercions les orateurs de ce matin.
We thank presenters
avec des présentations tellement brillantes.
with brilliant presentation.
À l'issue de la présentation du docteur Kiereme,
After Dr.
je ne sais pas si j'ai bien prononcé les noms, nous constatons que le réel problème que nous avons, c'est un problème de la stigmatisation.
We notice that the real problem you have is stigmatization problems.
Parce que les médicaments sont là,
Because medicines are available
et les institutions sont là.
And the institutions
Mais,
are there.
mais le problème, c'est le suivi, l'alimentation.
But the problem remains is about nutrition. And
Et
the
là,
follow-up.
ça demande que la riposte soit automatique par rapport à ce suivi-là.
And that needs automatical response for the follow-up.
Comment notre ministère AAIM
How a AAIM ministry
doit organiser cette réponse ou soit cette riposte d'une façon équilibrée à travers les 3 divisions.
can organize a balanced response through all the
Pour
divisions.
que notre riposte soit efficace par rapport aux problèmes liés aux problèmes sociaux.
So that we can have appropriate response for the social issues.
J'ai suivi aussi la présentation du docteur Sikwa.
I follow up also the presentation of Dr. Sikwa.
Et elle nous a aussi présenté presque l'organigramme de notre ministère.
And she presented the organization of the ministry.
Et j'aimerais parler par rapport à la coordination au niveau des unions.
And I want to talk about the coordination at the union level.
Qui sont membres de ces conseils au niveau de la coordination à nos unions.
Who are the members at the union level as a coordinator?
Si nous
of
pouvons
AIM?
comparer au conseil au niveau hiérarchique.
When we compare to the first level
Et
of the
la dernière question,
organization.
ça concerne Dr Laguno.
The third question is for Dr. Laguno.
C'est vrai que notre émission se base sur les principes bibliques.
It's true that our ministry is based on the biblical principle.
Et il a souligné que notre ministère est là parce que ça concerne un des commandements qui est le 7e commandement.
And some people think that our ministry is just
Que
one
dire
commandment.
des autres voies de contamination parce que si nous nous basons seulement au 7e commandement.
And some people see that when you talk about contamination, is just about only
Et
we
les
look to the
problèmes des
7
condoms
commandments.
restent toujours persistants, beaucoup plus dans notre milieu. Les condoms, l'usage des condoms.
Okay, the condom, still a
Les
problem
préservatifs, oui.
in our field.
Comment réellement il faut briser ces problèmes dans notre milieu parce que nous constatons qu'il y a vraiment un sérieux problème quand nous parlons lors de nos séminaires avec les responsables ecclésiastiques.
So how can we address the issue of condom, because there is a problem when we organize a seminar about this topic.
Moi, j'ai une courte question.
I have a short question.
C'est en rapport avec l'éthique. Éthique.
In relation with ethical,
nous avons vu les projections de photos des gens qui vivent avec le VIH.
We saw some pictures about some people living with HIV.
Des enfants, des adultes et même tout un groupe de gens qui vivent avec le VIH.
Adult children and other groups.
Est-ce que sur le plan de l'éthique, on a eu leur consentement?
I want to know if on the ethical base, did we get the consent of those people before to
sinon,
put their photo on
sinon, n'est-ce pas aussi une forme de stigmatisation?
If not, is it not like another kind of stigmatization?
Thank you very much. Could you?
I was not very clear on the last question. Can somebody explain it to me? For what? For
Yes, okay. For the last question, it's really true. It's very vital that we have that what we call consent form. In fact, we have in the office a compilation there in the office of the AIM office there at the SID. And it's very true, because we might be having problems if we show pictures of people and then later on they're going to file a complaint, and we might even end up with litigation. That's why, when we were in Loma Linda Health Conference, there was really a big sign that you are going to be on video. The fact that you are going to come here, that means that you have given your consent, you see. But this is it. It's very important that all of us, when we are going to use, when we're going to project, when we are going to have publications, that we get the consent of these people. Because I know some people are willing to give, say, okay, it's okay when we talk to them, but when you come now to the actual practice, then they're not going to allow you. A very good example was this teacher, and then he said, no, I'm actually willing to help you, and I can disclose. And then when we had a TV production, I said, we're going to have a TV production. Can we ask you to come and disclose that you are actually positively HIV, and that you're taking medications? So, no, I don't want it to happen. So just be sure, because some people, when they're going to face you, they're going to say it's okay. But when it comes to the actual practice, when they are going to be already on TV or they're going to be on publication, they are going to refuse. See? In the question of condoms, and number one, as I said, we're in the process of revising that web page, because even in the old, what we call web page of AIM, we had several. In fact, many of these materials are actually in the web page that you can download and you can use. But for instance, the condom, for instance, the training manual, and also the HIV policies, they are all there. But I know Dr. Bangwato Sikwa is going to transition it into the new page, which is a better layout. Now, the question of Patrick is that now, how are we going to relate to the statement? Now, first of all, I actually mentioned to you that the use of condoms, especially here in Africa, when we brought it, is because so many people, even elders of the church, even pastors, refuse even to use the condom. If you are discordant. No, they said, no, we cannot, because it actually stems from, there are some religions, other religions have said, no, you cannot use condom. It is against the will of God. You cannot actually practice, because it says that go and multiply and replenish the earth. And if you're going to use condoms, then that is going to be a violation of that. You know how they misinterpret, okay? But anyway, that's the reason why we come up with that clarification. It's very clear in the statement of the General Conference, and we're so glad about it because it has given clarification. One point, though, which during conferences like this, which has also been asked a question, is this section which says, in the event that a person, after you have explained to this person that, what you're doing is wrong, and they cannot really refrain from their, what we call perverse sexual appetite, then the statement says there, then you can advise condom. Am I right, Dr. Landless? Yeah? You can advise condom. And many pastors actually feel so uncomfortable with that. So we tell them, if you're not comfortable with that, you follow your conscience. This is what we're saying. This is an official recommendation of the church. But if your conscience says, I cannot do that, we cannot force you, because you are the one answerable to God. So please, that is the stand. There is a guideline that if people are hard-headed, recalcitrant, and still continue after you have repeatedly advised them, told them about the Bible, and say, I'm still going to follow my own way, then you might as well say, you might as well use this for protection. Because the problem is that it's not only you who gets the disease, but it's also the other person who's going to get the disease. Okay, let's hear from Dr. Ran.
Just added to what you're saying, it's the protection of the spouse in that setting. So we need to be reasonable. We need to also understand that if people are going to insist, and we think of our young people too, it's never been a recommendation that we use condoms instead of faithfulness. However, if it's my child who insists on crossing the Niagara or the Victoria Falls on a tightrope, and I advise them that you could fall to your death, and they say, I'm going to do it anyway. Would it be wrong for me to put a safety net, to advise a safety net underneath? I think we've got to realize that the same with vaccines. The church is in favor of vaccines. We do not mandate them. We don't force anybody. Everyone has a choice. So it's not the choice of the church that it should be done, that condoms should be dished out to say, well, do what you like so long as you're wearing a condom. It's faithfulness, it's purity first. And then there are going to be people who say, well, are we going to condemn them and throw them out? Because this whole thing goes a lot deeper than just the practice. Jesus said, you look at a woman to lust after her, and what? We don't always remember those things, but we're very quick to judge others. We had this problem in the early days of HIV and AIDS where a discordant couple got married. One was HIV positive and the one was negative. Where there were church authorities saying, you may not use condoms in your marriage. Come on. In the married situation between a husband and wife, to protect a partner. Let's be reasonable. Let's also use the common sense God has given us. And let's read the advice and the information that's given and put it in context. I know that I'm speaking to the converted mainly, but we need to be very sensible, and we need to realize that this is a life and death matter. And one of the questions that's come up, and I know we've got to finish now, is why would we have an HIV AIDS ministry as opposed to a diabetes ministry, as opposed to hypertension? Health Ministries covers hypertension, diabetes, and everything else. But the devastation of disunity which has come into the church over HIV and stigmatization and employment are issues which have warranted, and I believe by God's grace have made a difference in having the AIM ministry. The Ebola crisis was referenced. The church responded immediately when the Liberia hospital did not have its protective equipment to close the hospital's function until they had it. All the time that the church works with public health issues, we work with public health authorities. And I appreciate what you've brought up. When it came to COVID-19, we had information prior to the government of the United States implementing travel bans. We'd already been in contact with the Pan American Health, and they said to us, we're not giving you a date, but we are telling you this is going to happen. We were able to be 2 steps ahead of the rest of the country and the rest of the world because we had the information by working together with those in power. Are we perfect? Not at all. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely. We learn from the experiences. Let us as a church learn from the experiences and be reasonable, focused, faithful, and also grace-filled in the way we approach this issue.
Thank you, Dr. Landless.
Professor, I just wanted to add just 2 points. The first one was on the consent. We are going to have a presentation in the afternoon on digital, on media, how we handle that. So just make sure that you come, I don't know, the afternoon or tomorrow. But that we are aware that there's a difference between somebody giving a consent for press or a consent for an audience like this and a consent from getting online. Because sometimes somebody has given a consent for a picture here. Next thing the picture is online and it's on social media. You are violating somebody's consent on that. So we will need to understand those distinctions. And lastly, on that of the condoms, I know that we have health workers here, let's also be mindful that the advice that is being given for somebody at home and on personal level, we, as a medical practitioner, there are also rules and regulations that govern you. If you are having somebody come with STIs and all those other things, you have a medical obligation as a doctor to treat the person completely. And that is not about the policy of the church. It is about a doctor-patient consent and how you are treating the patient that is in front of you at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's now 15 minutes past 1. We will stop now and then start afternoon meeting at 2:15. Are we together? And then before we close, I want Dr.
May I suggest something? Maybe it will help if people write their questions, because maybe we are closing people out with something critical. Write your questions, we'll get a box and you put them in here. So at the end, maybe it will be better if we read them, because when we read questions, we can go faster. Let's do that. We'll put up a box here, write your questions and let them come in here. When we start, we'll just take the ones that are in the box. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I will request Dr. Chemi to come here, just make one comment and then pray.
Okay, thank you very much. There was a question on how to address stigma in our in our divisions. Thank you very much. We need education. And when we are educated, we are empowered. When we are empowered, then we have liberation. And then we have the power to implement what we know. Therefore, we are to educate our people. We are to empower them to take critical decisions for themselves. And then we are to help them to implement the decisions that we have taken or we've come out with as individuals or as a corporate entity. This will help us to reduce the stigma. Thank you very much. Please, let's be upstanding as we seek the Lord in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank you in the name of Jesus. We started the proceedings of the day with you, and we are ending this section with you. Whatever we have gone through, whatever we have learned this afternoon, help us so that we part and parcel of us. Help us to become ambassadors, to drive home this message, to save the dying world. As we leave this place, keep us under the shadow of your wings till we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen.
We'll see you here at 2:15.
Health Ministries directors from unions, I asked you, let's remain here and just touch base. Health Ministries directors from unions, can you just please come here briefly?
Preserved for our walk in this world. They resound with God's own heart. Oh, let the ancient words impart.
Words of life, words of hope, give us strength, help us cope. This world, where'er we roam, ancient words will guide us home. Ancient words ever true, changing me and changing you. We have come with open hearts. Oh, let the ancient words impart. 'Cause 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 'cause
faith handed down to this age came to us through sacrifice. Oh, heed the faithful word